Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Carrie Harris.
If you're headed to the Tide's opener this season over in Dallas, you might go ahead and pick out some seats for 2019 or 2020. A provision in the contract for New Year's season opener against USC in Dallas says the Tide and ESPN will exclusively negotiate to play an opponent in the Cowboys Classic in either 2019 or 2020. It's not the news Alabama fans wanted to hear, as we're 74 days away from the kickoff of the football season. 2 more Alabama players expected to be a part of the Tide's roster aren't expected to be a part of the team when the Tide kicks off against Wisconsin in Dallas on September 5th. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Jenn Chapman. Gary Harris is on vacation, and we want to say thank you so much for our drink today. Pepsi next. Woo!
No noise, no sound effects.
Oh, anything? Nope, nothing. Okay, well, there we go. Rodney, we'll get to the football news in a second, but first, a big-time commitment for Avery Johnson and the Alabama basketball program on Monday in Kobie Eubanks. Tell us what we know about his impact for this upcoming season.
Well, I think when you look at him, he's a guy that obviously got great size as a shooting guard. He's about 6'5½", close to 6'6", 215 pounds or so, and you know, he's a guy that really has been known as a scorer, but talking to his coach last night, Chad Myers, down in Florida, he said, hey, he's really kind of rounded his game out. He's a guy that's really developed in a lot of different areas, and he thinks that he can come in next year and really add some instant offense to the Alabama attack. And, you know, the ability to shoot outside is something that Alabama's really needed, and he's going to bring that, you know, the ability to load it up from the outside. And I think that's, you know, one of the things initially that we'll see from him. And
Eubanks was originally committed to Baylor, but reopened his recruitment. He picked Alabama over Kansas, Oregon, and West Virginia. Well, the Board of Trustees officially approved Avery Johnson's contract today. The deal runs through 2021 and will pay Johnson $2.8 million per year. It includes incentives. He'll receive a $50,000 raise by winning an SEC title and $50,000 more for making the NCAA tournament in both of his first 2 years. So Alabama's football team did get a little bit thinner this past week. It was announced that 2 players wouldn't be on the 2015 roster, beginning with Jonathan Cook. Cook was a rising sophomore cornerback for Nick Saban's team. It was announced Wednesday afternoon that he was no longer a member of the team. Rodney, how does this impact Alabama?
Well, I mean, when you look at Jonathan Cook, he was a player that, you know, had kind of worked some at safety last year, and he'd played some special teams and that sort of thing. And, you know, he's just a young player. And again, I think when you look at some of the guys that Alabama has brought in, some of the younger safeties, I think that, though not saying Jonathan Cook would not have contributed at all, but I think that, you know, Alabama's going to be okay in spite of that loss. But again, he was a talented young player.
And another somewhat surprising announcement on Wednesday regarding Alabama running back Desharius Flowers. The true freshman participated in spring practice, but according to the university, he won't be able to enroll for the fall semester due to a recently discovered eligibility issue. Rodney, let's talk about what that could be and how that will impact Alabama as well.
Well, Desharius Flowers was an early enrollee. He got here in January, went through spring practice, injured a shoulder, had surgery. There you see him as a running back at Viger High School last fall. And you know, he was a guy that some people thought, even though he was working at running back, could eventually become more like a player from his high school named Justin Fowler, as you remember, a guy that played that H-back role, played fullback, was more of a versatile player. I think some people thought that maybe Desharius Flowers could eventually become a guy like that. And, you know, so you always hate to lose a player that you sign, but, you know, again, he did not qualify academically, whatever the shortcoming was.
Well, here's the running back depth, or lack thereof. Henry and Drake remain the only 2 backs with any major college carries, so it's looking thin in the Tide backfield for sure, but I think Henry and Drake are pretty big names in themselves.
Yeah, they are, Jen, but you're exactly right when you said it's looking a little thin in terms of, if you look at the situation, there you see Derrick Henry. You know, he had injured an ankle his first year here as a freshman in spring practice, but, you know, of course he was fine last year. But you've got Kenyon Drake coming off major surgery. You've got Bo Scarborough rehabbing a major surgery right now. You've got Ronnie Clark, who was converted to running back last year. and he's coming off a torn Achilles. So Alabama's depth chart at running back, certainly an opportunity possibly, Jen, for some, somebody else, maybe Damian Harris, the true freshman, to get some reps. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Damian Harris, who was very highly touted, very talented freshman coming in. So he's going to have an opportunity, it appears, right away to at least provide some really good depth next year.
Well, something that's not looking thin for Alabama, their future football schedules in 2017 season are reportedly ready to go. Alabama is set to open the 2017 campaign in the Atlanta Falcons' brand new stadium against Florida State. The Tide will play another FSU later in the year. The Fresno Bee reported on Sunday that Fresno State will travel to Bryant-Denny Stadium for a game that will pay the Bulldogs $1.4 million. Well, we still have more to come on Tider Insider TV, including a look at the SEC championship rings. You may see some Crimson Tide players sporting. Plus, we catch up with a couple of former Crimson Tide players, including my one-on-one with Rashad Johnson, his inspiring story, and how he says playing for Nick Saban changed his life. And coming up, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. To the victors goes the spoils. Several Crimson Tide football players showed off their brand new SEC championship rings on social media. It's just another piece of hardware Crimson Tide players have to keep up with. Nice looking if you ask me. What do you think, Rodney?
I like them.
Flashy. I'm sure they wouldn't mind adding another one to their collection this year. Well, it's that time of year for youth football camps, and that means several Crimson Tide alums are returning to town to have a little fun with the kids. Former Crimson Tide fullback LeRon McClain held his 9th annual youth camp at ACA this weekend. He's currently an NFL free agent. When asked about this year's Crimson Tide, he expressed confidence in the offense and, of course, head coach Nick Saban.
Whoever getting it, man, you got Derrick Henry back there. You only got to hand it off to him a few times, let him break it wide open. A few key players on offense, but I think we already all in all going to be good, because last year we was worrying about who the quarterback going to be last year, and Blake Sims stepped in and did a tremendous job for us. And I got all the trust in Saban, man. I know everybody should. He came in and changed this whole program around and, changed his whole city around, and been doing his thing. So I got trust in him. Whenever they kick off against Wisconsin, hope he do his job.
Hopefully he does his job. Well, Rashad Johnson also was in his hometown of Sulligent this weekend as part of his walk-on to Champions camp. He held a charity basketball game on Friday night. He predicted a national title for the Tide in 2015. And Rashad didn't get to experience a Crimson Tide title, but you could definitely say he was a part of a group that laid the groundwork for several of Nick Saban's championship teams. Would you say that?
Oh, yeah. Rashad Johnson was a great player, great story when you're talking about a walk-on football player, and he was a walk-on running back, Jen, before he got switched, to safety and became a great player here. Not only that, but also has had a tremendous NFL career. But not only is he a great player or to have a great career and a great story, he's a great person.
And that's a great lead-in, because I was able to catch up with him this weekend in his hometown of Sulligent to discuss his career and his mission.
Number 26 for the Arizona Cardinals wasn't a big-name recruit out of high school. Most coaches didn't even know who Rashad Johnson was. But the determined young man from small-town Sulligent, Alabama, who graduated with only 54 people in his senior class, walked on the University of Alabama's football team and made his name known.
I didn't let any outside force dictate how I came to work each and every day. There were teammates of mine that would criticize me the way that I practiced, that would tell me I needed to calm down, but I didn't stop until I reached the goal, and that goal was a scholarship and an opportunity to play at the University of Alabama. So no matter what your goal is, no matter what you're trying to push forward, don't let anything or anybody stop you. And that's the message that I lived, that's the message that I overcame, so that's the message that I continue to preach.
Johnson went from a walk-on to a 2-year starter and captain for the Tide, then a third-round NFL draft pick, and says playing under Nick Saban was life-changing.
Playing for Coach Saban was the best thing that ever happened to me. Coach Saban was a great coach, but he was also like a father figure to me as well. He taught me so many little intricate details as a football player. He just taught me how the little details in football make such a big difference in the player you are on the field on Saturdays. And I did the same thing in my life as well. The intricate details, the small things is what add up to make the bigger picture.
Johnson's work ethic still evident in his professional career, the only rookie in the Cardinals' 2009 class to start a game that season. Johnson says it's easy to see why so many Alabama players make it to the NFL.
And he's trained us way harder in college than we'll ever have to work once we get to the NFL. So that's why it's such a feeder program and honestly the best program in the country if you're trying to go to the NFL. You know, Coach Saban knows the way. He has the blueprint.
A go-getter, a fighter, a role model, all describe Johnson. But how about resilient? In 2013, Johnson lost the end of his left middle finger on an attempted tackle. He kept playing.
We learned so much at Alabama about, mental clutter and being able to block out things that don't matter and being able to channel your focus on the next play and forget about all other things that are going on around you. And that was just something that I dialed into when that happened. The guy hurt my finger, I'm dialed in. I got to concentrate on this play. Then after the play, you feel the pain, but you're concentrated in on the next play.
Another carryover from Alabama to Arizona, the expectation to win.
Honestly, nothing less than a Super Bowl. We got a very good team. We got some very experienced players, a lot of guys returning. So I expect us to be very good and pick up where we left off last year and making sure that we finish this season the way that we should have finished last year.
Johnson watches every Alabama game and says this year's team needs one focus.
In order for this year's team to be a great Alabama team, they have to live off this season. They can't live off last year's team that made it to the first playoff and made it to the championship game. They can't think that they're going to do that just because last year's team done that. You have to go in, establish your identity each and every year, each and every game, and they got to approach it one game at a time.
As for the guys trying to prove themselves, take it from a guy who already did.
Keep fighting. If you're a walk-on and you keep seeing 5-star athletes walking in and getting a spot before you, I would tell you to keep fighting, keep believing, and it's, at the end of the day, everything is in God's control. No man can close any door that God has opened. No man can open any door that God has closed. I'm a firm believer in that. He has our destiny in his hands, and if you're faithful to him, he'll be faithful to you. And it says, faith without works is dead. So in order for me to show God that I believe in him, that I have faith in him, I have to make sure my work aligns with my faith. So I would tell them to work hard, and if your work is aligning with your faith, God will do the rest, and everything else will work itself out.
I could listen to him all day.
Yeah,
He's
great.
good.
Great interview.
Yeah, well, great message. He was so easy to talk to. So thank you, Rashad. We really appreciate that. And also for the example he's setting for kids. He even said he brings in these other NFL players so that these kids know that they can touch them. They're real. They're just people just like them, and that they can also be them. So he sends a very powerful message. Well, we still have more to come on TITV, including a nice debut for a former Crimson Tide pitcher. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. It wasn't the kind of start he wanted. Former Alabama pitcher Adam Morgan made his major league debut on Sunday for the Phillies. He gave up this Johnny Peralta homer against the Cards, but then he settled down to strike out 6 in 5 2/3 innings to earn his very first win in the major leagues. Well, it's time now to head to the phone lines. And first we got Plateau from Panorama, and he wants to talk to us about Deshaun Jones. So, Plateau, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I wanted to see what you could tell us about the junior college prospect from California.
Yeah, Plateau, you're talking about Deshaun Jones, a running back from Pierce Community College out in the Los Angeles area. He's originally from Mount Holly, New Jersey, where he was an outstanding high school player there, and he's been at Pierce the last couple of years. He's had some injuries that kind of limited him this past season, but he had a pretty decent year. And, Alabama's kind of looking for the possibility of maybe adding a running back here with some depth issues that they've kind of incurred. And I think, Deshaun's a guy they're really looking at now. Whether or not they'll eventually offer him, I don't know. He's still trying to, finish up junior college. He has a couple of courses that he had to finish up, a math and an English course, before he would be eligible to come here. But I know that Alabama is certainly, talking to him, Jenn, and he's an outstanding looking back and could certainly add some depth if they need it.
All right, and now we're going to head to CB from Tuscaloosa, and I think he wants to go exactly off where you just were, depth. CB?
How y'all doing tonight, sweet lady and Rodney? Or y'all doing all right
Doing
tonight?
well, CB. How are you?
Oh, man, trying to beat the heat. Look, what about, of course, we need, I love these local players. This Gordo Cat Davis, his daddy was a great player, and I knew his daddy, you know, and good folk, country folk, good folks, you know, stay out of trouble. We got to get some of them kind of cats. What's the hold up on him?
On Ben Davis?
Yes, sir.
I think he's an outstanding player. He's a great kid, as you mentioned, the son of Wayne Davis, the former great Alabama linebacker. CB, the same freshman class as you remember as Cornelius Bennett. And he started for 4 years, Wayne Davis did, the all-time leading Alabama tackler. And Ben Davis is an outstanding prospect as well, one of the best in the country. And I think, CB, if you're asking me an opinion, I think eventually he'll end up at Alabama, though. But he's a 5-star recruit. Everybody's trying to get him.
And you know what? I actually spoke to Dad on the sidelines last fall at a football
really?
game. Yeah, and he did say it's ultimately the son's decision. But, you know, there's a little
Sure, he
pressure.
wants him to go to Alabama.
But he did say he doesn't want him living in his shadow either. But he looks like he's making his own, so it's really fine. We'll see what happens. All right, we'll go to our next caller. We've got John from Bessemer, and he wants to talk about the 2 players that we have now lost here at Alabama.
Yeah, I just wonder, man, what's going on down there? We already lost 2 players, man. If we keep on losing players down there, man, we're going to lose every game this year, next year.
Well, John,
we need players down there.
Yeah.
Later.
Well, John, you always hate to lose players, but somehow I think they'll be okay.
That's all you got for us?
That's all I got for that one.
All right, well, we're not done yet on Tider Insider. When we come back, we're going to see Crimson Tide baseball players signing their first major league contract. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen, so interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. Another Crimson Tide baseball player signed his first professional contract this week. Casey Houston was the 3rd-round pick of the Pittsburgh Pirates, 96th overall. He signed his deal on Friday, becoming the 5th Bama player to sign with a major league team this year. Well, it's time for us to head back to the phones, and we're going to kick things off with BT from Tuscaloosa. BT, welcome to Tider Insider.
How you doing, Jenn Chapman and Rodney?
How's it going?
Well, BT.
I was going to comment on that report you did a while ago. Absolutely good story.
Oh, thank you, BT. I appreciate it. What did you like the best about it?
Rashad was commenting on, like how you take each day it counts on games, and that is exactly right. Am I right, Rod?
You're right. Hey, BT, you're always right, but that's.
If you don't, then I believe that too.
Yeah, you're right, BT. It's a good point. And I think when you look at Rashad Johnson, I mean, he talked about how he learned so much from Nick Saban, and I mean, he followed, he took what he learned, and it really was helpful to him in his career.
Thanks for calling us, BT. We're going to switch over now to JK. JK joining us on the lines. What do you got for us?
Hey, how y'all doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Rodney, I got to tell you, Jim's a lot easier on the eyes than Gary. It's good to see a fresh face there tonight.
Well, we won't tell Gary you said that.
Well, let me ask you this. Does Coach Avery Johnson have any more scholarships left for players maybe coming in this coming season left?
Yeah, JK, I think he has maybe 1 or 2. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 with Eubanks now, but I think he definitely has at least 1 slot that he could fill. And, where that'll go or if it'll, he'll utilize it, I'm not really sure.
And was it confirmed yet that Avery Johnson Jr. Had a sign, or is he a walk-on? How does that work with him?
I'm not really sure in terms of transfer. He would have to sit out generally when you're talking about transferring to another school, especially within the conference. But, I'm sure, there would never be a problem with the release from Texas A&M.
All right, JK, thanks for your call. And we've got one more caller, VO from Vance. VO, thanks for joining us. What do you got for us?
I noticed in the paper this morning we were ranked number 7 in football recruiting for next year. Who is 1, 2, and 3, if you have it?
Yeah, VO, I really don't pay a lot of attention to that, especially right now. I mean, the rankings are going to change dramatically, and I'm talking about the player rankings, which when you change the player rankings, that's going to affect the team rankings, you know, of all these recruiting sites and what have you. But, you know, I think when you look at Alabama, I think that several of the guys that they have right now will get bumped up. Their stock will elevate as they do more evaluations of them. And I think Alabama's in position to land maybe, you know, one of the top classes it's had, which is saying something. I mean, when you look at what Alabama's doing on the offensive line and potentially what they might do on the defensive line, it could be a really strong class in the trenches. And Jenn, I've always said, you know, I've been following recruiting since the mid-'70s, and I've always said that, you know, it's what you do in terms of linemen. That's the first thing I always look at. And I think when you look at Alabama's class, this year has a chance to be extremely strong on both sides of the ball up front.
All right, that's all we've got for right now. We're going to be coming back right after the break. We're wrapping up the show next on Tiger Insider TV. When we come back on this Tuesday night, a great reason to get up at 7 a.m. for several Alabama football players. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It was early for college kids, but several members of the Alabama football team woke up at 7 a.m. to help out at Habitat for Humanity project in Tuscaloosa. Veterans like Derrick Henry and J.K. Scott, along with newcomers like Blake Barnett and Damian Harris, all joined in. All in all, a great cause they are supporting. And that's all the time we have tonight for Tiger Insider. Of course, we thank you for joining us. And I've got to say, we've got to get this guy as a one-on-one, because who wants to learn some more about the Tiger Insider guru? I think a lot of you would, so would you be up for that?
I'll give it a shot.
We'll have to learn some of your secrets, how you know all that you know. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30, after the news at 10, and online at WVUA23.com. Thanks for watching. Good night.